Joseph. Welcome to Miss Immigrant USA podcast, Wise Immigrants, where we talk with the candidates to hear their stories. Because after all, we want to know who is the person who's running, who's taking on themselves this challenge. And as well, we want to know who is this person who is very often sacrificing their personal lives, their family lives, in order to make our lives better. So, Joseph, please tell us everything about you, where you're coming from, your family, your background, your history, anything you can share with us.
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name is Joseph Perez-Caputo. My father was born in Utuado, Puerto Rico. My mother was born here in the continental United States in Stamford, Connecticut. My mother's Sicilian, my father's Puerto Rican, and both of their cultures have a lot of similarities and were passed on to me. And so in our area, we're incredibly diverse. We're 20, 30 miles outside of New York City. So, all walks of life, all sorts of languages. And, I wanted to run for office because I felt like I wanted someone in that seat who had reverence and respect and true joy for the people that they represent. And I think there are a lot of communities in our area that are incredibly marginalized. But because it's a wealthy area, people overlook the wealth inequality. And I think good people get lost in the shuffle. So I'm 33 years old. I'm a law student. I think I'm the only one in law school and running for Congress in the country right now. It's very hard. It's very hard. But it's worth it. It's worth it. I'm proud of the work we're doing and I love our people.
So, what was the turning point where you said, like, oh my God, this is what I have to do?
There were a few throughout the years, and then I kept smushing them down and ignoring them, which I shouldn't have done. But then my incumbent was one of the many Democrats who decided it was appropriate to censor Al Green last year. Representative Al Green spoke in protest to the second inauguration of the current president, and my Democrat incumbent decided to censure him, and that was all I needed. That really made me angry. It was insult to injury. So I felt we shouldn't be censoring people who are having our back. We should be supporting them. So that's when I started looking into how to file Form 2 with the campaign finance board and like all the little details that really get you started. And it's been a ride so far.
Let's go back a little bit to your immigrant roots, your Puerto Rican roots and Sicilian roots. I'm very curious. How was it growing up in a multicultural family, especially those two cultures? They are like, how do you call it? Like very hard, they always show a lot of feelings, sometimes screaming or,
Yeah,
Sicilian as well, the Puerto Ricans.
yeah.
How this shaped you? Like if you can share a little bit about your parents, about growing up with them, what did they instill in you?
So both of them really focused very hard on hard work and
Mm,
honesty. That your word was your bond, and that you really had to stand on a level of honor and integrity and take pride in your work.
mm,
Outside of that, they both had differences, right? My father really valued creativity.
mhm,
He was far more impressed when you had a creative, unforeseeable solution to a puzzle or a problem. My mother actually really loved the direct approach. So
okay.
she loved to see you be fearless. And even if you lost, to go directly at the thing which are very different things, which was kind of nice because no matter what I ended up doing growing up, I got some wisdom out of it. Um, so I was very fortunate in that way. But from the cultural side of things, both are very loud. Like technically, this is the closest thing to a whisper I have. You
Yeah, I
know,
was
and when
surprised.
you're
Like I barely can hear him.
yeah, growing up, you had to be very loud just to talk to the person across the table from you. So for me, public speaking is easy. You know, I'm just talking to everybody at Christmas. It's the same thing. So I don't get the same stage fright per se, I think, that others do with public speaking from those cultures. And, you know, it is funny because both of those sides, sure, they have differences, but they have similarities too. They both have their types of folk music and
Mhm.
dance. Um, both are very loud. Both sides were Catholic. So,
Mhm.
for example, Christmas dinner, people are hugging each other. People are a little too close and a little too loud. The only thing that changed for me was the language. I'd go over one house, everyone's acting the same as over the other house. But the difference is one house was speaking English and one was speaking Spanish. So it was a proud thing to grow up with. Really beautiful food, singing. It was joyful.
Did your mom taught you to cook any Sicilian dishes?
No, she didn't.
No.
She taught me how to live on a budget though. I could make $100 last a month, and I
Wow.
can make good food with that. So she taught me how to bargain, and she taught me how to cook a couple little things, but it wasn't necessarily Sicilian foods. You know,
Mm.
we had the pastas and some of the chicken based things, but not everything. Not everything translated because we've been here, the Sicilian side, for 100 years too. So we have some of the cookbooks and we have all of that. But yeah, she didn't say we're gonna sit down and only do the cultural stuff. It was like, what do you need to get by? I got you. And she
Mhm.
taught me.
Mhm. How was it growing up with uh, your dad was first generation immigrant, yes? So his
Yeah.
thinking, like you said, it was a little bit different. What did he pass on you that you will never forget and you always going to share with people?
It's a great question because you could ask me that every day and I'd probably have a different answer. Um, I think I really valued his ability to listen, his ability to teach. You know, even he never thought he was better than anyone else. He learned something out of everyone. And in this world where people are often thinking they're better than other people, it
Mhm.
was really like nice to grow up with someone who saw class nowhere, nowhere under the sun was their class or supremacy. He just learned from people and taught them freely
Mhm.
the freedom of that gift. So I think that's something I really took with me is, you know, what can I learn from each person? How can I experience each individual intimately as they are before me, even if it's, you know, a passing conversation? Who is this being in front of me? I really appreciated his outlook in that way.
As you describe yourself as a Puerto Rican and Sicilian, having Sicilian and Puerto Rican roots, how did those two cultures shape your identity and your idea of belonging in America?
I think that both of those cultures have a really interesting role when it comes to how we were allowed to be here. And
Mhm.
I say the word allow, right? Because we were both are kind of taken in begrudgingly and somewhat by force. Italians came in a great migration, and you know we've had plenty of works by Scorsese, and people have made commentary on the Italians and the Sicilians. But we were used as laborers, and there's a whole conversation to be had about political versus ethnic whiteness, and at what point did we get treated as politically white,
Mhm.
and how we participated in structural racism after that. Um, but then there's also the other side where, from the Puerto Rican side, there was never a choice at all. Puerto Rico was colonized by the Spanish, and then it was taken as a purse by the Americans. So, you know, Puerto Ricans didn't get to choose to come here. Yet there is a privilege along with that colonialism in that all Puerto Ricans are born citizens of the United States. So my father grew up an immigrant, but he grew up around a bunch of different people who were his friends, but sometimes the immigration status was different. So he had a very enriched perspective of how you work with what you have and how you help other people with what you have and what they have. And, I'm second generation from one and I'm sixth from another. So they're very different as well. My Sicilian side's far more Americanized, but both are very anti colonial. So I think one of the ways it's really shaped my perspective is to look at the roots of things and be like, where is it wrong? How can we fix it? Because we don't have to just accept power simply because it tries to force us to. So, thousands of years of resistance in that regard flowing through my gene pool.
You support immigrant reforms. What do you think most Americans misunderstand about immigrants and immigrant identity in this case?
I think that Americans, not all, but by and large, there's this dissonance that exists. It's a tale of two immigrants, right? But it's really a tale of two Americas.
Mm-hmm.
So, on the one hand, they understand America as this land of opportunity. But on the other hand, their life is hard. So then enter the idea of any human being trying to enter the country. Before they see a human being as a human being, you see someone as an abstraction, right? You're a new idea, you're a new entity, and I have to process that. And so what ends up happening is people will look at their own bowl and they'll say, well, my bowl isn't full. You're going to take from me. But then they'll forget this is the land of opportunity. But then they'll deconstruct that maybe that wasn't true. And so it becomes this very befuddled conversation with oneself that they need to have, because I think people treat those who immigrate here horrifyingly unfairly. Horrifyingly unfairly. Especially considering there's a large swath of American propaganda that should say the opposite. That should say, oh, you chose to come here to rebuild your life. Welcome, sibling, right? Like, there are many other places you could go and you chose to come here. So wonderful. Let's take you in. So I think that Americans don't have a common thought thread. There's not a consensus over how to view human beings as human beings. And I think that's a very dangerous place to not have a good idea.
Or maybe a little bit, they kind of maybe forgot where they're coming from. And it was as well sometimes when I look at New York City, or maybe like some other neighborhoods where there's a bigger population of immigrants. So the people who are living next to them, they need to deal with them. So they are aware what's going on. But then maybe more in the middle of the country, other parts where they are they are less dependent on immigrant workforce, especially, or they are predominantly American for a few generations. They just kind of forgot and like, oh no, we don't need immigrants. We don't need people who think like immigrants or identify as immigrants, because even a lot of citizens, they identify with immigrants. So we don't want those people. So why do we really need them?
Yeah, I think there's an exclusionary idea, and that's just not what we are, and I don't think that's what we should be.
Mm-hmm.
But we're allowing it to happen,
Yes.
and I have no patience for it.
Yes.
I try and be nice sometimes, but I have no patience for it. We're all here to try and enjoy our families and live life.
As you said, you are 33 years old, yes? And
I
this is
am.
your first time running for an official position, people's position. How is your experience so far? And as well, you've been sharing your immigrant heritage, immigrant background openly with people. How is this experience? And are you seeing that maybe they treat you differently, better, worse?
It's very fascinating because there are people who I thought would be allies who aren't.
Mm,
And there are people who I thought, oh, I would just have to work hard to earn your trust, and the hard work was irrelevant.
mm,
But from the aspect of my history and my familial history, I was amazed to see how many people would select which parent to ignore
mm,
based on how they saw me. Because I look a certain way, and that doesn't necessarily reflect my gene pool, but it comes with privileges and things to unpack. And so it's very fascinating because I can be in one area and people will talk to me a certain way and it's very welcoming, and they see me in themselves and themselves in me, and it's very copacetic and lovely. But then other people will look at me and they can refuse or deny me because they don't find me as trustworthy.
mm,
So I think one of the hardest parts about being very open and honest about who you are in a congressional capacity, which is just ultimately a very vulnerable thing to be doing, is people are just going to have an idea of you too, and it might not be right. And even if it hurts you, they have a right to think that. Um, and you don't want to sort of try and dominate their idea. Um, I've had quite a few people trying to erase the Perez, erase my father's name, or, erase the fact that I am, of the diaspora. And, it happens less with the Sicilian because I think people have seen white Italians, and so it, in their mind, is permissible. But there are other opportunities where people could have connected with me on that vein of things and didn't. So there is a strange selective erasure, which I don't think I prepared myself for enough. I think I knew it could and would happen, but I don't think I realized how much of it was going to happen every time. Um, so that's if anyone else watching is thinking of running, just really be honest with yourself and don't let anyone change that, because some people just aren't going to get it. Some people can't hold space for all of you as a being, which is a shame.
So basically, people already discriminate you because of your last name, which is Puerto Rican last name, and that shows how they see the whole diaspora as not worthy, not trustworthy, and below the Sicilian, basically.
That only happened one time with like one specific constituent. I don't think I'm discriminated against as much as I'm deliberately sometimes misunderstood.
Mm,
And I do think it's like, if I have two books, one person's just not going to carry one of them.
mm.
There's just a refusal to look at that. And it's sort of this, it's prejudicial for sure in determining what of me matters to them. Especially, with some of the more affluent, whiter folks. Sometimes I have not been treated as a full being. And that's not everybody, but it happens. Um, but then I also look a certain way. So sometimes when I'm knocking on doors, I have broad shoulders and I'm bald, and sometimes people don't answer the door. And that's because maybe I don't look safe, because maybe I look like an undercover, right? So
Yeah.
there's just a lot to deconstruct.
Yeah.
And, it's not always bad, but it can be challenging.
I noticed that in many immigrant communities, what happens is that, for example, if somebody's running and they are, for example, let's say, I don't know, from Bangladeshi community, they they kind of running on this community. And we have now you here, you have combined two in one, which supposed to be better because you could relate to this community and to this community, which you do. But then on the other hand, your own communities kind of discriminate and say, oh no, you know, he's half this, so he's not us. And probably this happens a lot to different immigrants, because then there is some kind of mix of this identity, who we are, who I am, who you are, who you represent. Are you going to represent me well? Maybe, you know, you're saying you're Sicilian, but then you're going to give more to the Puerto Ricans. Yes?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think there's something about being, biracial or and many of my friends are tri or quadriracial, and the way that affects identity, and sometimes undermines a level of trust for this race, for this community. I've found that the thing that has made it more difficult hasn't even necessarily always been whether or not the community will come out to me, as much as it's the structure of where we are, right? Like, yes, a lot of Sicilians would probably vote for me in the general, and a lot of Puerto Ricans would probably vote for me in the general, but I might not make it to the general because we have these ballot access issues and all of that. And so that splits up the community. There are a lot of different political forces that split up the community and bracket it. Sometimes even without the community being aware that they're on different lines of different things on a bureaucratic level. And so that's also been a relatively surmountable challenge, but it's taken up a lot of energy. So yeah, it's a challenge. You want to relate to people as best you can, but then you also have to kind of take a step back and just talk about, like, well, here's the boring business side of why I need you to sign up for this. Because as much as you love me, I need this to happen for us to make this campaign work. And sometimes people don't want to do that either. It's a lot of paperwork and bureaucracy, which people don't like. Either side, they have that in common. They would rather smile and laugh with you than do paperwork.
How did your parents react when you share with them that you are running? You decided to run for Congress.
Well, my father passed away 4 years ago.
I'm so
And thank you. Anytime I had floated the idea, he would say, "Oh, here's why I believe in you, blah blah blah." But then he would go right into, "Well, I just want you to be happy, and is it worth the aggravation?" I think he just wanted me to have inner peace, and he didn't want me to overserve, right? He didn't want me to hurt myself to serve others. My mother, her chief thing was, "I believe in you, I support you, don't spend your own money." She was like, how much is this going to cost you? Like, how much is this going to hurt you? So I think both of them in their way just wanted me to not suffer any harm. And so I think they had their fears. Of course, obviously only my mother's been able to be around for this part of this story, and she's been lovely about it, especially these last few months. She loves doing anagrams and T-shirts, and so I asked her to do some of the merchandising stuff once we got a few funds coming in, and she's been having fun with it. And so she's supportive, but I think she wants to make sure I'm not coming to harm. And that's more than just the physical; it's emotional, spiritual, financial. So they came at it from the right place, which I appreciate. Sometimes it's not always the excitement you hope you'll hear when you talk about it with them the first time. But that's just pragmatic families for you. The excitement comes in time.
Yes. How are you dealing with all the pressure? You have to deal with a lot of people, a lot of issues. Everyone is asking you what you think about this, what you think about that, how you're going to solve this problem. Were you prepared for this amount of pressure?
Yeah. It didn't feel, it felt less like pressure and more like an outlet to pressure. It felt like all these fears I'm feeling and things I'm thinking, I finally get to talk about with people who actually expect there to be a resolution, right? So that felt more malleable in my hands. That felt like I could take these ambient dreads and put them into something tangible that I could work with. I mean, it is a lot. Discipline wise, it has definitely pushed me a little beyond the pale of what I would consider maybe healthy for myself.
Mhm.
But I enjoy, instead of just sitting at home and reading the law and being like, man, this is messed up, I can actually talk to someone and be like, well, yeah, you think it's messed up like that. Look over here. And then we chat notes and switch. And then we say, if we change this, wouldn't that be better? No, because of this. Well, what would you say? Oh, well, maybe this. And then it becomes this fun dialogue, sometimes challenging dialogue, but fun. So there's pressure, but it's also felt like venting pressure. I
Mhm.
have a path that I can put the pressure on. And I've kind of liked that. It has stressed me out, but it has also been a therapy at the
Yeah,
same
it's like
time.
going out there and just speaking out your mind. And actually, you can be passionate about it. You can scream about this and show that you care and that it's important. And people shouldn't be actually scared, afraid, fear of
Yeah,
opening their mouths and saying where they see the issues.
yeah. No matter what you want to say, you can say anything. Pick a sentence. There's going to be someone who's going to call you an idiot, and there's going to be someone who says, oh my God, me too, I agree with you. And it could be any sentence. You're going to get those extremes who support or reject you. So once like you divorce yourself from this idea of like earning hate or love and you just put the idea first, you're going to start meeting different people and the pieces put themselves into place,
Mhm.
which is really, that part has been more fun than not. That has been a lot of fun.
So you decided to study law. Why was that?
I believe very deeply that the law is written often by folks who don't care who it's written for. And it's often written, the law is written to predispose us to a certain reality. It's written to say, we want this to function this way.
Mhm.
But who's writing it, right? Does it serve everybody? Is it for a specific interest? So I wanted to go to law school because I really believe in an American Renaissance. I really believe in an American Reconstruction. I
Mhm.
really believe that the best hasn't happened yet for us. I also really believe we're right on the cliff's edge and we have to make very smart decisions or we'll lose the right to decide.
Mhm.
But I went to law school because I thought to myself, I want to have the skills to participate in, if you want to feed families, become a farmer,
Mhm.
right? Like I want to create a peaceful society. So I need to go learn the theories and the processes and the procedures so that when we have these good ideas, they can be written down, they can be enshrined, they can be enacted, they can be protected, they can be defended. And if it's a bad law, how do I destroy it? Because
Mhm.
there are mechanisms to do that. So that's why I went to law school. It's because I'm a true believer in this, and
Mhm.
I'm not going to be in the $200,000 a year big law job. I'm not going to be in the glass office. I'm going to be trying to cook up something that really helps people breathe a little easier.
We see a lot of, I mean, I've seen, probably you too, that a lot of candidates who are running, actually they're coming from the law background. And I wonder that is it because you study the law, you practice the law, and then you see more what's actually going on in the real life. And then like you said, you have the tools, you have a toolbox that you can use to or scream or make a change or say no more, educate others as well about this. So do you think as well maybe every person who decides to run for any position should take some law courses to prepare themselves a little bit more for what's coming for them?
I don't think it's a bad idea. It doesn't mean you have to go to law school. I do think, especially from
Mhm.
Congress's perspective, it's helpful that it's representative of totally different jobs.
Mhm.
If you have too many business people or too many lawyers, I think that becomes a problem.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think learning about the law really helps you to reframe what you've already seen and heard, right? How you live your life. You might not know what a tort is, but you know what it is because you've talked about, well, I don't want to be in trouble. I don't want to be liable. I don't want to be sued. So you have an instinct on tort law, right? Or on criminal law or on bad legislative policy or corruption. And I forget which legal jurist said this, and it may not have even been a legal writer, but a writer once wrote that expertise is when you're close enough to smell it,
Mhm.
right? And it's learning more about these things also means you're close enough to really detect the problem. And that's good because then you can have a responsibility or an ownership. Instead of just knowing it's around, you kind of don't know how to deal with it. If you're close enough to smell it, it's like, okay, there it is. I got to deal with this. So I think that's a great idea. Take a few classes on law or some legally adjacent, programming would be helpful.
Yes. Especially for the immigrant community, newcomers, and in general, need to learn so much about the culture, about the system, how everything works.
So even if you're learning about the law and you're new to the country, you could move across state lines 20 minutes away and your entire life is different. And now you're not actually reacting to things the way you might expect because the law is so vibrant and different. So yeah, learning about the local laws and the state law and how that changes between what the federal can do down and what that can do up. It's a big ecosystem. So I think that would go a long way in making people
And
feel very safe at home.
know your rights,
Know your rights.
at least.
Know your rights, know your rights, know your rights.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how you learn them.
What is one piece of wisdom from your family or culture that shaped who you are?
You have to survive together.
Mm.
You can fight, you can disagree, you can hate each other, right? You can have that issue, but both cultures would still want you to walk through the threshold of the door, sit down for dinner, eat, and survive together. They don't want you to splinter, um, which unfortunately people still do. But I think as a survival mechanism for this next decade or two of this nation, coming together, creating mutual aid and food networks and knowledge banks, that's something both of my cultures would that goes very deep into what our communities did in the original islands in Sicily, in Puerto Rico. That's how we survived. We
Mm.
can have beef, but I'm going to make sure you're going to stay alive. And maybe you're not happy with my joke, but you're going to eat and we're going to take care of each other. And I think that's what Americans need: real community, real family, real proximity, even if it's chosen, even if we're not related. Really keep showing up and surviving together. That's going to be our way out.
Joseph, thank you so much for coming out today, for sharing your story, your heritage, your journey to a better place, which we hope America will be a better place for everyone. And we wish you all the best in all your endeavors because I think it is just the beginning for you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Till the next one. Bye.
Bye.